Good morning. Welcome to Our Town here on Hometown Radio 103.7 FM and 1340 WAGN. I'm Ken Connors. The classic Broadway musical Fiddler on the Roof will be brought to life on the local stage. I'm learning about Theater on the Bay's latest production on today's show. I've got the director of Fiddler on the Roof in studio with me this morning, John Thornberry. Welcome to the show. Thank you very much for being here this morning, John.
Good morning, Ken. Thanks for having me back.
No problem. I expect it's a pretty busy time for you right now, getting ready for the show.
I don't have a lot of free time right now.
Thank you for making time for us, of course. We'll mention, too, as we go in here, you're not just directing, you'll also be on stage there in the show, so you got quite a bit on your plate here, I understand.
Yeah, directing, designing. I am acting in this production, and I'm chief cook and bottle washer. So there's a lot going on this summer.
Can you tell me how rehearsals have been going? How long have you been rehearsing?
We've been in rehearsal now for about 5 weeks or so, and things are going very well. We've been through music at this point. We've been through choreography, and we're starting to put scenes together now and starting to integrate everything. So we've got about 3 weeks to opening at this point, so we're coming down to the wire.
How long does it really take when you get into these rehearsals for a production like this?
We're rehearsing about 3 hours a night at this point. We'll move to 4 hours a night fairly soon when we start running acts of the show and running the full show. And it's almost every day for someone, you know.
I imagine, too, as I understand, this is a big production, so it kind of takes a lot to bring all those pieces together.
Yeah, some of the directing is a little more like traffic control. It's it's a cast of about 32, and the ensemble is such that, you know, if we had the budget for costuming and the space to put people, the ensemble could be as big as you wanted it to be. But we've got a good sized cast for this, and we've been working pretty hard now for about a month.
Like I said, this is a classic Broadway musical here. First off, can you start us with a little bit of the backstory to all this, how this all got put together?
Yeah, Fiddler on the Roof is based on a series of stories about Tevye the dairyman and his 5 daughters and his wife and the people of a little shtetl, a village in rural Russia in 1905. They were written by a gentleman named Shalom Aleichem, who took that name as a pseudonym. He was writing in Yiddish, and at that point in time, the Russian Jewish intellectual community thought that Yiddish was a vulgar language and that people shouldn't be writing in it. But Aleichem wanted people to speak the way he spoke, and so he started writing these stories, and they became very popular. And people between the early 1900s and mid-20th century had been trying to adapt them for the stage, but no one had done a musical version of them. And so Jerry Bach and Sheldon Harnick and Joseph Stein all had just written a musical called Fiorello, which won the Pulitzer in 1959, and they were looking for another project. And between them, they had one copy of an out-of-print translation of the Tevye stories, and they started trying to put together a musical version of them. So, and it made the stage in 1964, and by 1965 was in full swing on Broadway. So the show is just over 50 years old. And
as you started to mention there, the plot of the Fiddler on the Roof, it really kind of follows those Tevye stories, as I understand.
Yeah, Tevye is the central character. And the story of Fiddler is really about the story of upholding and breaking traditions. Tevye is a very conservative Jewish person, and he's very faithful, and he has his beliefs, and he stands by them. And his daughters, as they are coming into the age where they are they're coming to be of marriageable age, and they're forming their own relationships, which is something that in this day and age in Russia wasn't done. There was a matchmaker, Yenta, and in this story, and the matchmaker put together relationships, and the daughters and the sons who were involved were expected to go along with the parents' wishes. And Tevye's daughters decide they have other ideas.
And all of this is set against sort of a historical background, too, with what was going on at the time.
Yeah, 1905 Russia was a fairly turbulent place. Tevye and other Jews in that time would have been living in what was called the Pale of Settlement, which was an area that took up about 20% of what is now modern-day Russia and parts of Poland and other countries that are now in Eastern Europe. But people tend to know that there was a 1917 revolution that overthrew the Tsars and introduced a communist government. Well, that revolution really began before 1905 and was a sort of a continuous movement. And so there were pogroms against the Jewish residents in the Pale, and one of those pogroms becomes a central plot point in Fiddler, as a matter of fact. But it's a very turbulent time, and there are a lot of traditions being overturned and re-examined, and there's a lot of history outside of the Jewish settlements as well as inside the Jewish settlements that's being written during this period for Russia.
Fiddler on the Roof, the classic Broadway musical, going to be brought to life on the Theater on the Bay stage at the Herbert L. Williams Theater at UW Marinette. Looks like shows start July 16th, so in just a few weeks here. John Thornberry is the director for Fiddler on the Roof. We're learning about the show, the production on today's Our Town. You've got it on Hometown Radio, 103.7 FM and 1340 WAGN. Stick around, learning more about the production of Fiddler on the Roof that's coming up soon. When UW Marinette opened its doors in 1965, Fiddler on the Roof was playing to packed houses on Broadway. Theater on the Bay at UW Marinette is bringing the iconic American musical back to the local stage this summer. I'm learning about Theater on the Bay's production of Fiddler on the Roof on today's Our Town. The show's director, John Thornberry, in studio with me here this morning. John, I understand, again, this is a pretty large production you're preparing for with a very large cast, 30 members or so.
Yeah, about 32. And as we said before, we've been working now for about 5 weeks, another 3 weeks or so to go before opening on July 16th.
I'm curious, finding that talent here in the community. Was that challenging? Is it out there?
The talent is definitely out there. The trick with the summer show is getting them to give up their vacations and whatever else they might be planning for the summer because, theater is for most people a hobby, another activity for the summer, and there's a lot of schedule juggling that goes on trying to put together rehearsals and just to get people to come out in the first place. But we've always managed to get people together and cast the shows well, and there is a lot of talent around here.
Again, you're going to be also on the stage as well, not just behind the scenes directing things.
That is correct. I'm playing Tevye this year, and it's a role that I was questioning whether I should audition for, but I've wanted to play it since my high school did it the year after I graduated. So I'm going to officially forgive my high school drama coach this year, now that I get a chance to play the role.
What else are you doing out there? I understand, it's not just even acting or directing. You're taking part in some of the other production elements.
And I've been designing sets here almost since I arrived back in 2012. 2012. And so I'm designing the sets again for this show. And for those people who may know Fiddler on the Roof, and I'm gathering there are a lot of them, we're 3 weeks out and we've already sold 140, 150 tickets for this show. So,
wow.
But for those of you who know the show, this is not going to look like Fiddler on the Roof that you have seen previously. There's not a whole lot in the way of realism about this set. Fiddler on the Roof, the title of the show comes from a painting by the artist Marc Chagall, who was himself a Russian Jew, and he painted a couple of figures of fiddlers dancing on rooftops, both of whom I believe had green faces. So the title of the show, Fiddler on the Roof, comes from the idea that these people in Anatevka, the place where Fiddler takes place, are scratching out a living and balancing on this fine edge between, keeping their faith, keeping their traditions, being Jewish in a place that wasn't friendly to Jews, and just trying to keep their balance, and Fiddler on the Roof as a metaphor for that. So I'm taking a style of painting from Marc Chagall and using lots of blues, greens, pinks, reds, and sort of putting the cast of the show into a three-dimensional representation of a Chagall painting.
Oh, that's very cool.
There's a famous painting of Chagall's called "I and My Village," and there are things like upside-down houses because perspective is skewed in Chagall's paintings, and color usage is not what you would expect in a realistic setting. So we're going to be in an atmosphere that people might not associate with this show, but that I think will work very well for it.
Bringing these elements together, things like the staging, things like working with what's a fairly large cast, challenges in putting together this production.
Mm-hmm. Well, as we talked about earlier, scheduling just in and of itself is an issue, and making sure that I'm able to give everyone enough time to do what needs to be done is a little problematic. We all have day jobs. We have other things that are going on, and it's true of community theaters and some educational theaters around the country. It's not a new problem, but people are very willing to give their time, and it makes the job easier.
So the audience for Fiddler on the Roof, is this going to be safe for all ages?
It absolutely is. This show is extremely family friendly. We did Cabaret last summer, and the themes were more mature, and some of the costuming was a little more mature. It wasn't really appropriate for a younger audience, and Fiddler on the Roof absolutely is. So
a lot of classic music in there too, I assume.
Yes, if I Were a Rich Man is well known from this show. Sunrise Sunset may be the most popular number from this show. It's been used for weddings now for 50 years outside of the show itself. So,
what do you think audience members are going to get out of the show then, besides having a really good night out at the theater?
Well, they certainly will have that. I hope they come away with an appreciation for the musical, an appreciation for some of the artistry that inspired it, and a sense that musical theater isn't, even though it's not a form of realism, that they'll come away with a sense that they're dealing with real people and real characters who have real issues.
Let's talk a little bit about the show itself. If they're coming to see it, what should they expect in terms of time? Is there a break, intermission during it?
Yeah, it's a traditional book musical, 2 acts with an intermission. We're hoping that by the time the night is over, you will have spent about 2.5 really good hours with us.
Tickets, then. We need to let folks know how they can get in to see Fiddler on the Roof. What do they need to do? I understand that pre-sales are available now, and they're doing really well.
Pre-sales are doing very well. Like I said, about 140, 150 pre-sold. And you can go online right now to marinette.uwc.edu, and there's a ticket link right there on the home page. It'll take you to Fiddler on the Roof. Tickets are $16 for general audiences, $10 for students. And you can also buy tickets if you're not comfortable going online or don't have time to do it right away. You can buy tickets 1 hour before each curtain at our box office at the theater. So
let's talk about the dates then for the show. Coming up here in a few weeks, you get started July 16th. That's a Thursday.
Right. We run Thursday, Friday, and Saturday for 2 weekends. So the 16th, 17th, and 18th at 7:30. The 19th is a Sunday. Our Sundays are at 2 o'clock. So we'll run the 16th through the 19th, then again from the 23rd to the 26th of July. All right. Fiddler on the Roof. Again, the production starts July 16th.
at Theater on the Bay. That's at the Herbert L. Williams Theater at UW Marinette. Going to be talking more with the show's director, John Thornberry, as we keep going here on Our Town. You've got it on Hometown Radio, 103.7 FM and 1340 WAGN. Stick around. It's Our Town. I'm Ken Connors, joined today by John Thornberry. John is directing Theater on the Bay's production of Fiddler on the Roof. The show is opening July 16th. You even have tickets available already. You can pick them up online at UW Marinette's website. Of course, tickets will also be available just before those performances. Again, the show starting July 16th. John, can I ask you, what really stands out to you from Fiddler on the Roof, the musical, the story?
Well, the character of Tevye, who I've been wanting to play now for 35 years. I've been doing theater since 1980, so I'm celebrating my 35th anniversary in theater by playing this wonderful role. There's just a huge amount of love that drives the character, and a lot of conviction that drives the character, and his relationships with his family are all very, very interesting to see on stage. So.
Some of the things that help to make Theater on the Bay's productions possible, sponsorships, and you've got a big one, Ellie Jones, that's been helping out.
Absolutely, yeah. We have two very large sponsors working with us. We can't go without thanking profusely UW Marinette. They've been around for 1 year longer than we have at Theater on the Bay. So the college is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. Theater on the Bay's 50th is next year. We're in season 49 right now with Fiddler. So they keep the lights on for us. They provide the budget for the summer musical, and we could not do this without them. So a huge thank you to them. And Ellie Jones Ellie Jones Company is our above the title sponsor for the summer musical this year, and they've been big sponsors for us now for 2 or 3 years. And Sound of Music and other shows in the fall and the spring for the academic year. And we were invited out to their first family recreation day over at the Marina Bandshell just recently.
And, we had the little preview there.
And I have a feeling it's responsible for some of our pre-sold tickets. So,
very nice.
Ellie Jones has been great to us.
Should mention, too, like you said, this is the start of the 49th season for Theater on the Bay. Can you give us just a little preview of what's coming up this season?
Well, after Fiddler on the Roof, we go into the children's theater season. They're doing Disney's Aladdin Jr., directed by Patrick Mines, who directed last year's Secret Garden.
Okay.
And Patrick is playing Laser Wolf, the butcher, in Fiddler on the Roof. So he's got good, strong ties to us right now. So Aladdin is based on the Disney film. Then Theater on the Bay's first fall show in 2015 is Arthur Miller's All My Sons, which is a World War II drama.
Okay.
Joe Keller has been running an aircraft manufacturing plant, and the word starts to get out that he may have been manufacturing shoddy parts during the war and supplying them to the military. So, good heavy drama coming in November from Theater on the Bay.
Excellent.
Then in the spring are 2 shows that, frankly, I'm not as familiar with as the people who selected them. So, Dorothy in Wonderland is the children's theater for the spring, and it's a mashup of The Wizard of Oz and Alice in Wonderland universes. And then Theater on the Bay's show in the spring is a piece by Sarah Rule called Dead Man's Cell Phone. About it starts out with a woman in a diner, and she is listening to somebody's cell phone ring across the room, and the guy won't answer it. So she goes over to confront him, finds out that he's dead, sitting in his chair, and then she answers the phone, and things go from there.
Okay, so that's a nice little bit of selection there coming up for Theater on the Bay's 49th season that's going on right now. John, again, you're, of course, directing Fiddler on the Roof. That's going to be opening July 16th. Better give a shout-out to a couple of the other directors taking part in the show, too.
Yeah, a summer musical does not come together without a support staff, in addition to the cast, and I've been very, very lucky this year to work again with Leah LaMalfa as my vocal coach. So she's directing all the music in the show. And Erin Elizabeth Dahl has performed with Theater on the Bay now for a couple of years, and this year is our choreographer. So
lots of different aspects that have to sort of come together to make the musical Fiddler on the Roof possible, too. And audiences, I'm sure, are going to enjoy the show. It's really family-friendly, too, so everybody can come to Fiddler on the Roof. Again, John, why don't you run us through the days and times that Fiddler on the Roof gets going? I know you start shows July 16th.
That's right. We do July 16th through the 19th, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then again, the 23rd through the 26th of July. Thursday, Friday, and Saturdays at 7:30, Sundays at 2, and the tickets are $16 and $10.
And you can already start getting those tickets. They're available online at the UW Marinette website, or just pick them up an hour or so before showtimes. Again, Fiddler on the Roof coming up here just a few weeks. Opening night, July 16th. Looking forward to another great show. I want to thank John Thornberry for being in here this morning. He's directing Fiddler on the Roof, and I know times are busy right now as you're heading into those final few weeks of rehearsals. So thank you for taking the time there, John.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ken.
You're welcome. Theater on the Bay's Fiddler on the Roof opening July 16th at the Herbert L. Williams Theater at UW Marinette. I'm Ken Connors. You've been listening to Our Town this morning here on Hometown Radio 103.7 FM and 1340 WAGN. Be sure to tune in again next week. I'll see you then.